You know, what if I told you that a single movie from almost 50 years ago is still shaping the world we live in? Well, that's the story of Bruce Lee and Enter the Dragon. This wasn't just some blockbuster. No, this was a cultural earthquake.
And I'm not exaggerating here. This quote from our source material, it just hits the nail on the head. When this film landed in theaters, it sent shockwaves across the globe, and it fundamentally changed, well, pretty much everything about cinema and culture.
So, how in the world did this cultural earthquake even happen? We're going to explore exactly that. We'll look at the man behind the myth, see how he completely reinvented the action hero, and figure out why he became this incredible symbol for the oppressed, and what makes his legacy so powerful even today. To really get the scale of this thing, we've got to go back to the very beginning, right to the epicenter, the exact moment the ground started to shake. The year is 1973. This is it. This is when Enter the Dragon comes out, and it marks this huge cultural watershed. Believe me, this was not just another action flick. It was a line in the sand. Things were different after this. And this is the whole ballgame right here. This wasn't just a movie role. It was a full-blown revolution. I mean, before Bruce Lee, an Asian actor headlining a huge Hollywood movie, it was just unthinkable. He didn't just break the barrier. He absolutely shattered it into a million pieces. But, to really understand the icon, you have to get to know the man. And Bruce Lee's journey, wow, it was forged in the fire of racism and discrimination, a struggle that would end up fueling his vision for a totally new kind of hero.
So look at this. On one side, you have the ugly reality of Hollywood at the time, a system just filled with racism and lazy stereotypes. But on the other side, you see Lee's incredible response. It wasn't just anger. It was this deep, powerful philosophy of resilience, of empowerment, and of total self-mastery. And Jeet Kune Do, that was basically his philosophy put into motion. It was a martial art that threw out all the rigid, old-school styles. Instead, it was all about fluid, adaptable self-expression, which was a direct challenge to the outdated systems he was fighting against, both on-screen and off. Now, this philosophy didn't just shape his life. It completely transformed the action genre itself. Because Enter the Dragon wasn't trying to be just another spy movie. Oh no, it was a total reinvention of what an action hero could even be. I mean, think about the action hero of that era, right? It was James Bond. He had his cool gadgets, his fancy guns, and the whole weight of the British government behind him. But Bruce Lee? What did he have? Just his body. And with that alone, he represented an entirely different kind of power, one that came from inside. And that's exactly why his character connected so deeply with people all over the planet. He wasn't just fighting some bad guy on an island. He was fighting for a world that was just waking up from centuries of colonial rule. A world that was finally finding its own voice and its own strength. And this is where the story of Bruce Lee becomes so much more than a movie. It becomes a story about hope, about a hero for people who felt oppressed, a fighter for everyone who had been denied a victory for way too long. This quote right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of it. That raw, explosive emotion you see in his performance, that is the fury to win. For audiences who felt powerless, watching him was this incredibly cathartic release. They saw someone finally winning for them. So who were these people who saw themselves in Bruce Lee? Well, they were literally from all walks of life. Asian communities all over the world, African Americans in the States, people in newly independent nations. Really anyone, anywhere who had ever felt like an underdog. And that's the bottom line. Bruce Lee's image completely transcended race and culture. He wasn't just a movie star anymore. He became a global icon of resistance, a symbol of hope for a different kind of world. Which brings us to his legacy. Because even though Bruce Lee died so tragically young, his influence, man, it's still all around us. In fact, you could argue it's stronger than ever. So why is that? How is that possible? He was like a shooting star, He burned twice as bright, but for half as long. He died at just 32 years old, right at the absolute peak of his fame. So what was it about him? What did he leave behind that left such a permanent mark on the world? Well, to really get Bruce Lee's legacy, you kind of have to put him up there with other cultural giants. We're talking about figures like Muhammad Ali and Bob Marley. Like them, he was so much more than an entertainer. He was a voice for the voiceless, a symbol of defiance and resilience for millions of people.
And then there's the tragedy of it all. His sudden, shocking death at just 32, it left this giant void that could never be filled. It basically froze him in time as this forever young icon. And all the unanswered questions and myths around his death, they just fueled the fire, transforming the man into an immortal legend. And so we're left with this one big question. Why? After all these years, why does the dragon still cast such a long, long shadow? Well, maybe it's because the world is always going to need heroes. And in a world that still feels so divided and unjust, the story of one man who fought for something better with nothing but his own two hands, that's a story that's never, ever going to die.